So as I said, we're gonna look at rearranging formulas. We're gonna start with the ones that you should already know from previous years, and then as we progress in this course, we're gonna learn new things, okay? We're still rearranging formulas, but new things. So when you're rearranging formulas, the most important things is need to be, you're doing inverse operation, right? So when you're moving one thing from one side of the equality to the other side, you're gonna have to do the opposite operation. But also you're gonna have to do order of operation in reverse. So instead of going BEDMAS, you're gonna go the reverse order, right? Which is you get rid of the sum first, then you get rid of the multiplication, then you get rid of the exponent, then you get rid of the bracket. Okay? So we're always moving backward from what we usually use to solve. Okay? So there's easy ones and there's harder ones. So let's start with the easy ones. So it's asking you for each example, isolate for the variable p. So for the first one, what do you do to isolate for p? Move I to the other side, and then that becomes a subtraction. That's right. So that means a minus I equals b. So this is the easy one. I'm doing opposite operation, right? How about for the second one? What do you have to do to get rid of, to isolate for p?
You do the same thing.
So what do I have to do?
A divided by b.
A divided by 2, right? Because you want to get rid of that 2 with a p, so you're going to have to divide. So you're going to bring the 2 over, and it's going to become a division. Are we okay with that? Opposite operation of multiplication is division. A equals p squared. How do you isolate for p?
I'm not really sure.
What's the opposite of square?
Square root.
Square root, right? Because you want p by itself. So that means I have to square root both sides, right? And then the square root of a equals to p. A equals 2p squared plus I. Remember, you're isolating for p, so you want to leave p by itself, move everything else. What do you move first?
Do everything you did on the other 3 steps in one, kind of like that.
I have to do it actually step by step. So, can we look here? Slides on me. So what do I have here? I have multiplication, I have exponent, and I have an addition, right? So if I give you a value for p, the first thing you want to do is what? If I tell you p is 5, what do you do first? So if I tell you p is 5, right, and I have this 2, 5 squared plus I, or plus 7. Let's give you I as 7. So p is 5, don't write this, I is 7, okay? So you have this. What do you want to do first? When you're doing BEDMAS, what do you do first?
Brackets.
Brackets, it's already simplified the size of brackets, so what's the next thing that you want to do? Exponent. So you have to do 5 squared, right? So that's the next thing you're going to do. That's the first thing you're going to do, okay? Then after you do the exponent, what do you do? BEDMAS. So we have multiplication, division, right? So after you do the exponent, you're going to multiply by 2, correct? Yes? So you have 2, 5 squared plus 7. You're going to have to do the squared first, then you're going to have to multiply by 2. What's your third step? Add the 7. Okay? When you're getting rid of stuff, you're getting rid of the stuff backward. So whatever you do last is the first thing you get rid of. Okay? So if I want to move things around, what's the first thing I need to move around? Whatever I did last. So I need to get rid of this first. If I'm moving things to the other side, that's the first thing I move over. Let's look at this. So you have your exponent, you have your multiplication, and you have your addition, right? The first thing you're going to get rid of is the addition. So you're going to bring the addition over. What does it become when I bring it over? Subtraction. So the first thing I get rid of the addition. Then, what do I get rid of after?
The exponent, so it's
No. What comes before the exponent in the reverse BADMAS?
multiplication.
Multiplication. So I have to get rid of the multiplication. So that means I have to divide by 2. Then, now I get rid of the exponent. Okay? Now I have to get rid of the exponent, and then to get rid of the exponent, I have to do the square root, which is it's very important that you know the steps you need to take to isolate. Okay? I have 2, so I need to isolate for variable b. C equals to 2b minus n. Because b minus n is in bracket, that's the last thing I'm going to deal with. Okay, remember SAMBED is the opposite of SAMDEB is the opposite of BEDMAS, right? So the last thing I'm going to deal with is the bracket. What's the first thing I want to get rid of?
I'm not sure.
I have 2 multiplied by b minus n. What's the first thing you want to get rid of? Thank you.
Brackets.
That's the last thing you want to get rid of.
2.
The 2. That 2. Okay? So the first thing you want to get rid of is the 2. Because the last thing you want to deal with is the bracket. There's only 2 operations here. There is multiplication and there is subtraction inside my bracket. Right? So the first thing I need to get rid of is the multiplication because that's whatever is outside the bracket. So it's going to be c divided by 2 equals b minus n. Do you guys understand that part? Now I want to leave b by itself. What do I have to do? So you want to leave b. What do you do with that negative n?
The other side.
Bring it to the other side. Right? What does it become when you bring it to the other side? Addition. So I left b by itself. What do you see in the second equation? So c equals b over 2 minus n. Do I need these brackets? Is there a reason for these brackets? I don't see a reason for it either. Okay? So we're going to pretend that we don't have a bracket. Right? Because there's nothing multiplied by it, so there's no need for the brackets. What's the first thing you want to get rid of then? The subtraction. That's right. So when I bring the subtraction over, it becomes a addition. Then how do you isolate for b and leave b by itself? What's happening between the b and the 2? What kind of operation do I have here? Division. When I bring it over, what does it become? Multiplication. So when I'm bringing it over, it's going to multiply by everything over here. So it's going to be 2 times c plus n. Okay? The whole c plus n is multiplied by the 2. Okay, now because n is inside the bracket, I can't do that first, right? You have to release it from the bracket. But the square is the log. So you have to get rid of the square first, right? So you have a bracket and a square. If you don't get rid of the square, you can't release anything from inside the bracket. Does that make sense to you guys? How do I get rid of the square? Square root. So I have to square root, so that gives me the square root of c equals to b minus n. You see how when I square root it, I release everything from the bracket. I don't have the bracket anymore. Now what do I do?
You take n.
That's right. So bring n to the other side, and that's the square root of c plus n equals to b. Now here's a very, very, very important note. This and this. Oops. Are they the same thing? No. Okay? So you have to be careful how long you're making your square root. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, when you're putting your calculator, and let's say if you have the square root of 10 plus 5, right? Make sure that when you finish with the square root of 10, you exit that square root, okay? Because most of you have these kind of calculators. So when you do the square root of 10, let's say that's an example, right? You need to exit the square root by moving your cursor 1 over, okay? So you exit the square root, and then you add whatever number you want.
So for the last one, you put just the c in square root?
That's right, yeah. So it's just the square root of c, let's say c is 10 and n is 5. So you do the square root of 10, you exit. So you move the cursor 1 over, and then you do plus 5, right? You do that arrow to get it out. So just remember that these are not the same thing. How do you guys say for B? What's the first thing?
The 2 outside the bracket.
That's right. So the first thing you want to get rid of is that multiplication, right? So you want to get rid of the multiplication by bringing it over. What's the opposite of multiplication? So it's going to be c divided by 2, yes? Okay?
And then do the exponent, so it becomes the square root.
Correct. So you're going to have to square root now, right? So that's going to be the square root. Remember, you're going to have to make that square root longer because you're square rooting the whole c over 2. Okay? Equals to b over 2 minus n. What do you do? The subtraction, you're going to bring it over. What does it become? Addition. Again, outside the bracket. Outside the square root, sorry. Then What's the last step?
I don't, why does that look like,
Sorry?
I'm kind of confused because why is square root slash plus? And then,
Because I brought the n over, and it becomes a plus, yeah?
Okay.
Okay? Now you have equals to b over 2. How do you get rid of that? What's the opposite of division?
Multiplication.
So I'm going to bring the division by 2 over here, and it's going to become a multiplication. When it becomes a multiplication, you have to make sure that you put it in bracket. Because you're multiplying everything already on the left side by the 2. And that's my final answer. Let's look at the example. So to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit, the formula is used to determine, the formula C equals 5F minus 32 over 9. Determine the formula to convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So basically isolate for F. So they want you to isolate for F. What do I have to do to isolate for F? What's the first thing you want to get rid of?
Brackets.
Remember, bed mass backward. So the last thing you want to deal with is the brackets. Yes, you can get rid of the multiplication or the division. Because I have all divided by 9, I probably want to get rid of that division first, right? So I probably want to bring that division here first. What does it become when you bring it over? Multiplication. So I have 9c equals 5f minus 32. What else?
How do you get rid of bracket? No.
The bracket is the last thing you want to deal with.
Get rid of the 5.
Get rid of the 5, right? So because I have a multiplication here, when I bring it over, what does it become? A division. So I have 9c over 5 equals f minus 32, right? And the last thing is the brackets, which is the subtraction. Now you're going to bring it over, and it's going to become an addition. Okay. We're okay with that? The area A of a circle with radius r is given by A equals pi r squared. Use the formula to determine the radius of a circular oil spill that covers an area of 5 kilometers squared. So what are you looking for? Use the formula to determine the radius. So you're solving for the radius given the area of 5 square kilometer. Okay? So that means I'm isolating for, what am I isolating for? The radius. Okay, what's the first thing I need to do to isolate for the radius? How do I isolate for that radius? What's the first thing I get rid of?
Get rid of pi.
The pi. So I'm going to bring the pi over. What does it become? Since this is a multiplication, what does it become when I bring it over? So a divided by pi equals r squared. And what would be my next step? Square root it. You got it. So it's going to be the square root of a over pi, and that equals to the radius. I know my area, right, which is 5. So I can just plug in 5 in the calculator for A. And that's a matter of just inputting it in the calculator properly. Make sure that when you do your square root, you do your square root and then you do your division under the square root. So it's going to be 5 divided by pi, and that's going to give me 1.26 kilometer, right? My unit is going to be in kilometer because my area was kilometer squared. Make sure you do that in the calculator. Double check your answer that you got the same answer as I did. So this is for isolating formulas. You're going to be doing a lot of isolation. Make sure you practice, because the more practice you do, the better you get at. Okay? It's one of the things that once you see it more often, you get better at. Okay? So you should be able to do the homework on pages 346 and 354. So the day 1 homework. Okay?